Hello, so welcome back. In the previous video, we did the load data. You can see it here. We already have it done. And basically, we're opening a connection to our database. And we're using this SQLite connection. And we have this connection string. And you can go over this in the previous video. But now what we're going to do is work on this timer ticker. And basically, what this is going to do is going to give us an ability to check the clipboard and see if anything has been, added into our application all the time. So it doesn't have to wait till someone clicks something. It'll always be checking. So the first thing I'm going to do is check the clipboard. And here, if the clipboard contains text, that's the first thing I want to work on. And I'm going to type an if statement by hitting IF and tab, IF tab twice. That's automatically going to set up our if statement for us. You could do it the hard way by typing it out and putting the parentheses and the brackets and stuff, but I do it this way. And then I'm going to type click. I'm going to type clipboard. Oops. So I'm going to type clipboard.contains text. Now, you can see here it says contains audio, contains data, images. So we can check on a lot of different things, but we just want to check the contains text. And that's going to return true or false if it does contain text. And I'm going to put my mouse over this right here. And you'll see this little pop-up that comes up. It says bool clipboard.contains text. And then it says one overload. That means there's another function inside of there, inside of clipboard, the clipboard class, that's called contains text. But this one that we're using, it's going to return true or false, and that's why it says bool in front. And if you look down here, it says returns true if the clipboard contains data. And so this is why we want to be able to use this. So if the clipboard contains data, we're going to do whatever we need to do in here. If it does, save it and add it to your database and the list box. So that should be in here. And then afterwards, I can update that information. So the first thing we need to do is get the text from the clipboard, and we're going to store that inside of a variable. Let's call that clipboard text. So I'm going to say string. So, and then that's going to equals clipboard.getText equals clipboard.getText. So now we're taking the text, if it is in there, we're taking that text and we're putting it inside of this variable right here. Now, what we got to do is we have to check, because even though it can contain text, it can contain empty text, and we don't want any empty text. So we're going to create an if statement that checks to see if it's null or empty. And I'm going to do that the same way I started off with this if statement. And I'm just going to say if double tab, and that's already written. And now I'm going to say exclamation mark, meaning whatever this is, opposite. I'll explain that in a second. So I say string because I'm checking using this string, and then I'm going to say is null or empty. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put in the clipboard text right there. So that's going to check if it is null or empty. And then I also want to check, which means and I want to also check the clipboard text. Oops. So I'm checking that clipboard text, and I want to see if it does not equals the previous clipboard text. Okay. And I'm going to close that. So I have an open bracket here and a closed bracket here. Let me make some space over here so you can see the difference here. So if it is null or empty, but then I have this exclamation mark here, which means if it is not null or empty, and if the clipboard text is not the last text. So if it's not null or empty and if it is not the last text that was in there. So I don't want duplicate text. Then I'm going to go ahead and do this. So inside of here, what I want to do is I want to save the current clipboard text. And so I'm going to do underscore last clipboard text equals the clipboard text. And remember from the previous video, this last clipboard text, we have it up here as a variable and as a string variable. Okay, so after doing that, we want to go ahead and add a new item to our list box. And then we also want to go ahead and add that to the SQL database. And we already have a database connection. So that's going to be fairly trivial. That's going to be fairly easy for us to do. So first of all, since we have something in the clipboard, let's add it to our list. And if you remember from the previous video, we added a list on the front end of our application. So all we have to do is say clipboard items, which was our list. Dot item. Yeah, looks like we got it. Add. Dot add. Okay, so we're going to take that clipboard item dot add, and we want to add the text that we currently have in there. So we're going to say clipboard text here. And then we want to go ahead and close that off. Now, this right here is from the previous video. If we go over here, we'll see we have this clipboard items list box here on the front end. That's what we're adding it to because we gave it this name. So that's why we are using that here to add the items, whatever we got in that clipboard, to that list that we have on front. So now that we have that in that list, now we want to go ahead and add it to the database. Now, what I'm going to do here, instead of boring you with typing all of this, I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to type this and we're going to come right back. All right, so here we have it right here. We have this using statement, and we've used the using statement before. If you remember from the previous video, we used the using statement up here, and I told you there's an easier way for us to make this more streamlined, but we're going to continue to use the using statement. We're going to repeat everything. We're just going to get everything to work, and then we can refine everything later. But here I am using this using statement. Inside of that using statement, we have this information here. So you can see the using statement goes from here to here. After we get everything inside of that clipboard, now what we're going to do is we're going to make a connection, the same what we did before. We're going to call that SQLite connection using the connection string. And inside of that, we're going to open this connection, and then we're going to create a command. That command is going to be to insert into our database, which requires text. And the value that we're going to give it is this variable right here. Now, this variable, adding that variable, is here when we put it to these parameters. So we create this variable here with the command parameters, and we want to add that with the value here. So this right here will go inside of that, which will then go inside of here, and then we execute that. All right, so I'm going to basically highlight. Let's see. I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to copy this. And it should be in my clipboard. So when we run this, we should be able to see that in our list when we run it. So I'm going to run that. And there we have it in our list right there. We don't have anything here, but we have it in our list, which is cool. Let me try something else. While it's running, I'm going to go over here. And I'm going to copy this right here. I'm just going to Control-C to copy that. And if you have there's that one that we just now did. I'm going to scroll down. Let me just copy something like this. Hit copy. There it is right there. Let's try something that's not in our interface here. Let's go ahead and try to open up something online. I just copied it. Let's see what happens over here. Oh, there it is right there. So you see we have all these things that's being copied now, and that's what you should be able to see inside of your list box. So let's update our application just a little bit. We'll do something fairly simple to where we can go here and we can close our app. So we want to get one of these menus to work. I'm going to go ahead and close this down. I'm going to expand that. If I go over here to my menus over here, you'll see this close menu app item. And we can add elements to this header by simply clicking here on menu item, I'm going to go over here and I am going to go to, I can name this menu item right here. And I'm going to name that close app. And if when I hit enter, when I place it here, you'll see over here it says menu X name. You see that? And it's basically close app. So I can get access to it directly inside of my code. That's one way I can do this. Or what I can do is I can just say here, this is called close app. I'm going to now go here to this little events button. We'll click on that. And you see where it says click? Since I already named it, I'm going to double click on that. And now it'll say close app click. But because we had our pre-code up in there, our code up that we had before that we downloaded, we already have a close app click in there from your template if you downloaded the template. But if you didn't download the template, this will say close app _1, but just so you can see how I created that. So if you already downloaded the template and you already have this, what you want to be able to do is delete that. Go back here and make sure that this click is close app _click without the 1. So you want to be able to edit this part here. Make sure the click says close app _ click. And this is how we went about creating an event to that. So it automatically writes it for us. But since we already have a closed app, if I were to double click on that, it's going to send me right to this closed app function here, which is where we're going to put all that information. So the way we're going to do that, let's go back to our code. We're going to type in systems dot application. No. It's systems dot window. Yeah, windows.application. There we go. So systems.window_applications.current and then shutdown. Oops, shutdown. There we go. That should shut down our application. Let's see if that works. I'm going to go ahead and run this. And let's go ahead and try to close our app. Yes, perfect. Now we have that working to close our app. Let's look at how we did that again. We went over here. We saw the menu item that we wanted to close. We clicked on it. And initially, we were here in the properties. We gave it a name, right? And then we wanted to give it an action. So we went over here to the events. And we clicked on the event button. And because we already gave it a name, we double-clicked on here. And it automatically wrote a version of this for us, but it called it _2 because we had already downloaded the template file and we already had this function in there. So we deleted the 2, close app _click _2. We deleted that, or 1, whatever it said, and we're just going to use this one here. So we went back here because it automatically named it, and we removed the underscore and just made sure that this name right here was the same as this function name right there. And then we went to put systems.window.application current.shutdown. Now, the truth is we don't even need this part here for this to work. You can just application current shutdown, and that will work just as well. I'm going to make sure I save that. And you want to go ahead and try that and make sure yours also shuts down when you click on that menu item. Now, another thing we probably should do, we may not do all of these here. We probably should be able to clean our database. So when our application runs, hold on, I'm going to run this again. And you see what's happening here. We're building up all these things, _click, all these other things. You see, it's even checking up on these things that I did previously. So what we're going to want to do is be able to clear this out. And we have, I think do we have a clear database. So we want to be able to do that. So let's go ahead and work on that. Again, we want to be able to use this clean database _click. So again, I can come here, back to the front end. Here is the menu item, the clean database. I can go inside of here and start typing click equals and then the name. Or I can click on this menu item, go over here, make sure I have the events button selected. And then inside of the clicked, I can paste that name in there. Clean database underscore click. This is just another way to do it. I took the name from here, from this function right there. And I went here, menu item. I selected that menu item, make sure I have my cursor on there. Come over here to the events, and I pasted it right there. And all I have to do is hit enter. And once that happens, it's connected to this function here. And how can we tell? Because when I go down here, you will see it wrote it in there for us. Now, we could have literally just typed it in here this way and it would work the same. But I really want you guys to see that there's multiple ways to do this. This is why it's important to understand a little bit about the XAML, the interface, and the properties panel you have over here. Now, keep in mind, I didn't give it a name or anything. I just said what it will use to run the event once it's clicked. So we could have given it a name, which I suggest a lot of times you do give it a name if you're going to be working with it in the back end. But if not, this is also fine. So now that I have that there, I can go back to the code behind and then complete this portion of it. But there's a couple of things we have to do. We have to clear the list and the database. The list is the easiest part to clear. So let's say if I were to say something like clipboard.items, which is our list, clipboard items.item. There we go. And we want that, there's a clear function to that. If I were to do this, I'm going to run this really quick. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to click on clean database. That's clean, right? Okay, so let me close my app. I'm going to run it again. And look, it's still there. Why? Because we're pulling from the database every single time the application reloads. So when we reload, as you remember from the previous video, we did that on the load up here. So what we want to be able to do is also clean that. When we press this, we want to also clean it from the database itself. Now, that's pretty straightforward. We're going to also use a using statement here. So I'm going to type using. I'm going to double tab that so it can write the structure for me. And then I'm going to give it the resource right inside of here. So I'm going to create a variable just like what we did before. You should be familiar with this part right here. So that's going to be connection, and that's going to equal a new SQLite connection. So that's a new SQLite connection. I'm going to give it the connection string. You remember that. And that connection string's up on top where the rest of our variables are. Now, inside of this using statement, we're going to go ahead and open a connection. It's the same as before. And we're going to say .open. This should all be familiar to you at this point. And we're going to create a variable, and that's going to be command. And I hate to bore you through all of this, but I'm just showing you how to do this. I mean, you've already done it before. You can literally look at your code previously that we did and basically follow along with that. But I just want you to see it's exactly the same thing. There's nothing special going on here. So that's going to be our function.create. And we're going to create a command. So you can see that right here, create command. And I'm going to create a command that actually deletes everything. So we will say command text. And we want that command text to be open and close quotes, right? And then I'm going to put the @ sign right in front of all of that. And then I'm going to close this off with a semicolon. Now that that's all set, I can go inside of here and write my SQL command. So I'm going to say delete from clipboard. And remember, the clipboard was our database items. Our table, sorry, not our database. It's from our table. So make sure that this is spelled right, because if it's not, you're going to get an error because it won't know what you're looking for or looking at. And if you're really confused, you don't really remember, go back up here and you'll see you have the names here. and you'll see the structure is basically the same. So if you are really scared, go ahead and paste it right there, and everything should be fine. Now we want to go ahead and execute this command. So after I'm done here, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to say command dot execute. There we go. All right, now let's see. I'm going to save that. I'm going to run. Now let's see what happens. Here, I'm going to go here and I'm going to clean the database. Okay, good. Let me close it now and I'm going to run it again. And we should have nothing. There we go. Oh, I just now copied that. So that's why that's in the database. But you see, we did clear out the database. We have our app close working. We have our clean database working. And the only thing we need to do next is the export. So we're going to go here, back to our front page. We're going to go here to where it says export. We're going to click on that menu, just like what we did before. And then inside of the, when we click on that menu, we're going to go over here, make sure we're not in the properties button. We want to be in the events button. Click on that. And then in the click, we're going to type export. And we're going to type underscore. And we're doing this from scratch in a way. Export underscore click. So make sure yours looks like this because we want, you know, if you want to follow along, you want to make it look the same, but you can name it whatever you want. It's up to you. So once I do that, I'm going to hit enter. Once I do that, you'll see it wrote this function here. And if I go back over here, you'll see down here it says click export underscore click. So it's all connected. Now to just give this a little test inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and maybe I can make a message box or something like that come up. So in order to do that, I'm going to go here to this list box area. And what I want to do here is I want to add a label on top of this. So right above that menu, I'm going to add a label over here. I can go ahead and type it out, or I can go over here to this label and I can simply just drag this here if I'd like. That's one way. Or I can go here to this label and I can drag it somewhere over here. Now, the label is here. As you can see, the label is here. But that label right now won't be able to be seen. I can move that label up and down. But what I want to first do with this label is add and actually position it in a way that it's going to be presentable for when I put some information in there. So I'm selecting right now my list box. If I were to drag it up and down, you'll see how I can make some space by clicking on that little handle down there. So I can click on that, and just keep in mind that the reason why this is behaving this way is because we have a stack panel here, which means if I click on my label, you'll see how that label's pushed all the way to the side. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to do something like this. If I were to say, okay, I'm going to take that label and I'm going to push it over to the bottom. You see, it's down there now. But let's say if I was to take that label and I was to push it to the top, right? So see, there's the label right there. Now what I want to do is I want to change the width and the height of that label. So I'm going to change the width to something along the lines of the same width as this here, or the height of this. So let's do something like 200. Okay. So now if you look at my label, you see right there is 200. And now we can see the text or the information inside of that label. You can make your label whatever size you want, but this will be able to work. Now I can make the label a little bit bigger. I can change the text, but just understand that because we're putting that label inside of this dock panel, that's why when we first did it here, in order to be able to see the text that's in there, in order to be able to see the label, we had to position it either the top or the bottom or someplace, you know, in relation to the other list box that's there, because the dock panel is automatically stacking these in a particular order. If you do not tell it which way to do it, you'll come up with the fact that you can't see it. So right now we can see our label here, and we're going to go ahead and name that label. So I'm going to select that label. I'm going to go over here to my properties. If I don't see the proper section, let's say if I'm still stuck here in the events tab, I'm going to go over here to the properties tab. Once I'm over there, I'm going to go to the name category, and I'm going to name this, consider how many things we copy. So we're going to say clipboard count label, okay? Clipboard count label is what we're calling it. And now what we want to do from there is save that, go back to our code. Inside of here, we're going to say clipboard count label dot content equals, and open and close quotes. This is just a test. Export list. Okay. So let's see that work. We're going to run our application. Now here, I can go here and I can say export list. And there it says export list right there. I can do it again. It's going to say the same thing, so it really doesn't matter. So now we got our test going. Now we can go ahead and put our export information in here. We're going to export this out to something like a text file, just a regular text file. And we can export this out to, we can save it. So we're going to open up a save dialog so people can choose where they want to save it. So let me type that here. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to type that right in this spot, and I'm going to come right back so this video doesn't go too long. All right, so here it is, the save dialog. So we have a save dialog variable, and it is of a save dialog class type. And we're creating a new one. We're instantiating it here. So now we can use this variable, this object. So now we're taking that and we're filtering it. So you know when you open up a file or you're going to save a document and it says, hey, you want to save this as a text, as a PDF, that kind of thing? Well, that's what this filter does. And it's saying we only want to be able to check or save for text. Okay, so that's basically anything with a dot text. And the star means anything dot text. So that's the only type of file we're looking at here to save. And then we're asking a question. If the dialog, show dialog is true, that means if we already have a show dialog, no matter how many times the person keeps on clicking, you don't open a new one. If it is true, then go ahead and open the stream. Meaning if the show dialog is open, if that's true, now we can go ahead and open this stream. And the stream is going to give us access to whatever file name this is that we get from the file dialog. When the person puts that information in there, you'll see it happening. And so we're using this. You remember the using statement. We're literally using this the same way we use the database. And the using statement will close this connection when we're done. And so it does a lot of stuff for us that we don't want to have to do. So thank goodness for the using statement. So now what we're doing is we're taking this variable here, which is a stream writer. We're taking that stream writer, SW, and we're saying we want to write something to a file. Okay. So we're saying stream writer, instead of writing to the console, we're writing to a file. We say write line, and then we're creating a new string. And then we're saying we want 25 of these. New string, comma, 25, dash 25. We're saying we want 25 of these. So I'm making a horizontal line that's going 25 across. Plus, we want this word, to do. Plus, we want another string with another 21 lines on the other end. And then I'm going to make some more lines, and I'm going to make a double line, 50 units across, right? So horizontal lines. Then I'm going to take this variable, and it's going to equal 1. And then I'm going to say for each item in the clipboard. So remember when we were copying, we copied as much as we want. It's going to check each item in that clipboard inside of that list. And it's going to keep looping through for every last one. So it goes through the first one. And then it's going to say SW right line. And it's going to add this item right here to the next line. So it's going to say I, which is 1. And then it's going to say the item, which is in the clipboard. So it's going to say number 1, and then whatever's in the clipboard. But it's going to create a new line here, okay? Then it's going to write a new string, which is a double line. And then it's going to increment that I. So I plus plus is the same as saying I equals I plus 1. So it's just going to increment it. So right now I is 1, then I will be equals 2, then I will equals 3 for however many things that's inside of the, the clipboard, not in the clipboard, inside of that clipboard items list. So let's see this work. I'm going to go ahead and save that. I'm going to go ahead and run this. I'm not going to close the app or anything. I'm going to go to File and Export. I'm going to save it to the downloads. And then I am going to name that file. I'm going to name it something ridiculous, whatever. And then I'm going to hit save. And now I can check the downloads. Let's go to the downloads. And here it is right here. I'm going to double click on that. And here's our file that we exported. So you can see here's a clip item number 1, and then 2, clip item number 2, blah, 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 number 4, 5, and so on. Now you can use this for your team. So let's use this in respect to an application, or let's say some requirements. I'm going to clean our database. So let's say I had a series of requirements that I had to do. Here are my requirements, and I wanted to be able to save that in some sort of file or something like that without going to the hassle. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my application open up, right? And I'm going to go here and I'm going to copy this. I'm going to hit Control-C to copy that. I'm going to go here, Control-C to copy that. I'm going to go over here, Control-C to copy that. I'm going to just keep going down the list. Control-C, 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 and I can even copy this if I like. Let me see. Control-C and Control-C, whatever, right? So now look at what's happening here. I have all this stuff copied, all my requirements copied. And now all I have to do is File, Export, and then I can save that wherever I want. Hit Save. I'm just going to save over that last file. And then when I open that file up, you'll see I have all my to-dos, all my requirements listed here. So I have this first requirement, that's 25 points. This second requirement, that's 5 points. This third requirement, and so on and so forth. I can do this with lists. You can go online. Maybe there's some website. You're just pulling things off. You're just copying and pasting them, you know, whatever it might be. You can go ahead and do that. And so this is a great way now that you've created this application to give to your team members and to also use it for school or whatever you want to do to make sure you stay on task and make sure you can make your task as you're surfing the web or doing whatever you need to do. Let's go back to our application. I'm going to go ahead, app, and I'm going to close this app. And there you have it. Now, the only thing I think I want to see happen here is I sort of want to know how many things I've been clicking on. And that's why we put that label up there. So we can basically say, every time we click on something, we're going to want to know the count of those things. Now, the way we want to do that is we need to go up here to our wherever, not the load per se. We want to go to the timer because we want the timer to be able to tell us how many things have been clicked, so on and so forth. So that's not going to be inside of here. We're going to go down. Let me organize this a little bit. There we go. I'm going to go down here. And I'm going to say clipboard count label because I think that's what we called it. There we go. We called it clipboard count label. And then I want the content to that. And I want that to equals. So I'm going to concatenate this. And there's a couple of ways we can do this. I can do something like this. So let's say if I put some text here. And I say plus clipboard items. Right, so I say clipboard items dot items, and I want the count. I want to know how many items are in there, right? So I can do this. And whatever here would work. I can say items in clipboard. I don't have to capitalize that. Yeah, so I can say items in clipboard and put something like that there. And this will work. Hold on, I'm going to hit save. This will work. I'm going to run this. And you see items in clipboard 9, right? So we have 9 items in the clipboard, including these 2 things that we have here, okay? So I'm going to close this app. But a more elegant way to do this is to do it with this $sign. Now, the $sign allows us to not have to use this concatenation using an add or a plus. It allows us to do it inside of the quotes. For instance, I'm going to remove all those quotes, from the front. From the back. And I'm going to encapsulate my variable here in with the text. Okay. So all I have to do to say that this is a variable is put it in these brackets. Because I'm using this $sign, it's going to read through all this in very simple sentence flow, so that way it's easy for you to read through or your team to read through. Both of them work the same, but I find that this is more elegant to where it flows with the text itself. So now if I were to run this, you'll see it's all going to work exactly the same. There's not going to be any issues. And there it is. I have 10 because I ended up copying something in the end over here. So I can clear this out, clear my database, and close the app. Now, there's a couple of things that we could do to make this app even more user-friendly. We can run this app and we can make it to where you can right-click on it and remove items instead of having to remove everything. So that would be a pretty cool thing to do. And we can actually make it to where when we are closing, we have an event that checks the database. So as it's closing and as it's opening, we can do all of that. But that's just added components that we can do to our app to make it much more, user-friendly. And perhaps in the next video, we'll get to that. But for right now, you have a working app that actually you can just copy whatever you want. I'm just going to copy something out here, copy, go back to my app interface. You can see it's right there. We can export it out. We can close our app and we can clean our database. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. And hopefully if this was helpful to you, if you have any ideas of how we can improve on this, you can go ahead and leave them in the comment section below, and perhaps I'll pick that up and do something with it. But for right now, you do have something that you can work with a team. You can work with yourself. This will be good for school. It'll be good for anything. And you built it yourself. And you can join a community and you guys add on to this or whatever. But it's a really cool to-do application that taught you a little bit about programming, C#, object-oriented programming, and also saving and writing to files. All right. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.